It's story time with the Histories, with your hosts, Matt Marie and Jen Dumas.
Presented by Anchor FM.
Hey, everybody. This is your host, Jen Dumas, along with fellow host Matt Varennes, and you're listening to Storytime with the Histories, the podcast focused on world history stories that are sometimes bizarre, often entertaining, and always factual. Today, we're going to continue our discussion on the French Revolution, focusing on the disastrous plan to escape Varennes, and this is the last part of it, right?
This is it. This is a 3-part series, so we highly recommend if you've not checked out the first 2 episodes, check those out because we're just hopping right into this thing.
Yeah, this is where King Louis is going to get it. So quite interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So where we last left off, basically, the royal family had been captured after failing to execute their half-assed escape plan, which it was. I'm sorry, the picnicking visuals, literally, I could not get away from them. It's just it's just horrible, right?
It's the setting up of all of the accoutrement. All of it is just insane.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
There's no other word for it. Anyway, all right. So they don't escape Varennes because they don't know what they're doing. And then there's this huge tense standoff that occurred between the troops who were loyal to the king and the militia groups who were loyal to the revolution. And they're, going at each other. But we do know when it's all over, the king does end up in custody of the revolutionaries. And they're going to return the entire family of idiots to Paris. Right?
That's right.
And it's not good. This is not like hey, let's go back to Paris and calm down and discuss this. Figure a common ground out. It's going to get dark.
Yeah, this is a newer, darker chapter of the revolution, that's for sure. And, justifiably, many of the revolutionaries, as well as a large portion of the peasantry in all of France, had lost their collective faith in the king.
Yeah.
The distrust that was garnered by the escape was exacerbated by the fact that a rumor, possibly started by the king himself, began to circulate that the king had not gone willingly along with the failed escape plan.
Wait, that he didn't want to escape? That he...
No. See, now here's the thing. This feels to me again like we're placing a lot of blame on Marie Antoinette and her Austrian family. The effect of this, though, was that many people now questioned whether the king was even, should be keeping any sort of power at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Can't be trusted.
No, exactly, right? And furthermore, the note that the king had left behind, and, more on that in our first episode if you need a reminder on what he wrote when he, quote-unquote, escaped, first began to lead many people to believe that he no longer intended to honor the Constitution and that the positive gains of the revolution made thus far were in absolute and real jeopardy. In short, the king had failed to escape, but had succeeded in radicalizing the revolution.
Which makes complete sense, right?
Yeah.
Because they talked about, we're going to work together, we're going to have a constitutional monarchy, and now all the stuff that he's done, whether we blame Marie or him or whoever else, if I was French, I wouldn't trust him. I'd be like, no, we're done.
How could you? I mean, even if he doesn't write that note, even if it's not 100%, there's just no way you get past the optics of he was running to Austria with his wife, with the intention, clearly, of starting some sort of war.
Oh, totally. Against his own people.
Yeah, yeah. There was no way around that. And
it's-
then
it-
Austria invades. And so
Well, yeah.
what are you going to say after that? Like, oh, hey, no, they
wasn't
did that
me.
on their
Wasn't
own. Yeah,
me.
exactly, right?
Well, and what the killer part about all of this is when they originally did this, when we had the National Assembly, their goal was not to get rid of the monarchy. Their goal was just to create this constitutional monarchy that was going to limit the power of the king and give actual rights to the people.
Yeah.
That's all they really wanted when all of this started.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it was a very limited liberal reform system.
Yeah. And so, but then we got some issues, right? And we can't go too deep into constitutional politics because it's a nightmare. But
There are
there was
books
a
about this.
group that had been working since about 1789 to create a strong constitution that would still leave the king in charge of the country, but like we said, give checks to the power. But the group also issued a bad faith proclamation that's going to kind of further the rumor that the king had not willingly gone along with the plot.
So this proclamation happens after they try to get to Varennes and they get brought back and all that sort of. Okay, gotcha.
And so here's a little snippet of the proclamation. The Assembly issued a proclamation on June 22nd, which contained the transparent fib that Louis did not voluntarily try to flee, but was kidnapped by sinister, mustache-twirling counter-revolutionaries. Because, you can't obviously be sinister without mustache twirling.
Got to.
By insisting on the king's loyalty to the nation, the Assembly, what they really wanted to do was to suppress a pro-Republican sentiment. Because not everybody in France wanted a Republican government.
No,
they
definitely
thought it
not.
was too much, way too liberal. And so we're adding this to the big fat fire of disaster that this revolution has become, and it's only going to make it worse.
Right. And in fact, the people who want republicanism, who want more of a radical revolution, they seize this moment, right? The desire to leave the king and get rid of the monarchy split many of the coalitions that had existed during that time period.
Yeah.
And again, we can't get too deep into the weeds, but I do think a little bit of clarity here would help kind of understand what's going to end up happening to the royals, right?
Fair,
so
true.
essentially, in 1791, there's this group of people, they're named the Social Circle, who emerged and were attempting to radicalize the revolution, right? The group sought the abdication of the king after the flight of Varennes, as they viewed him as having been too grave of a threat to the revolution from this point on. And they issued a petition calling for as much. Now, this petition that they issued created chaos amongst the broader coalitions that were making up this like liberal reform system that you talked about, right? The main revolutionary faction, this group called the Jacobin Club.
Oh, I love you some Jacobins.
That's right. It's those guys, right? And they get fractured when some who viewed the current king as a mortal threat, and this other group who wanted to kind of keep the king in power, right? Now, the Jacobin group that is like the more like radical revolutionaries, they're called the Cordeliers. So basically, we have this group that are like monarchists, right? They want to keep the king in power, and they're the minority group. You have a moderately like revolutionary group. Then you have this radical group, the Jacobin, and then you have these ultra radicals, and they're the Cordeliers, right? And all of these groups are now swirling around. They're like sharks with blood in the water. And the king is the one who has inadvertently baited them all in, right?
So basically what it is they've got the king back in Paris. Whatever ends up happening to Louis is going to determine the fate of the revolution, or at least the new path of the revolution. And they all have very clear different ideas about what they want done.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And the groups that's starting to gain the most power are these ultra radicals who want to continue to liberalize or push the revolution further down this liberalizing path, right? Now, the only way the king would remain on the throne was if there was some sort of national vote that were taken. That's kind of the compromise that was set forth, right? Otherwise, there would be either a new king, right? Which, like, I don't know if anybody's going to go for that.
I was going to say that does not sound like a good.
Yeah, more likely we're looking at a new government that would be created in France altogether. And this one, bam, is going to be Republican, right? Now, lest you think that we're going into all these like details and everything, all this like vote getting and petitions and everything else, like we're not just going down this path for no reason, because this like whole thing pushes this debate, I should say, pushes the radicalization of the revolution forward, right? So essentially, here's what happens. All right, there was this petition that was going to be publicly placed on an altar in the Champ de Mars. It's the modern day home of the Eiffel Tower, if you can think about the geography of Paris, for all the public to read and potentially sign. Now, 50,000 Parisians gather to sign this thing.
That's pretty good.
Jammed into this public square, everybody waiting their turn to get this petition signed to create some sort of new government, right? Again, likely some sort of radical republicanism. This is when things go completely off the rails. Some might say permanently for the revolution. Now, check this. Underneath that altar, there are these two guys. They like crawl underneath. This is like a Looney Tunes cartoon, right? And they're hanging out underneath the altar, right, to try to look up women's dresses and like tie the shoelaces together. They're just pranksters.
So this literally has nothing to do with trying to alter the outcome of this process. They're literally perverts.
Yep. And they're just hanging out, doing their thing underneath the altar. They're discovered, though, by a group of men. And this group of men immediately believes that these two guys are there. They're monarchists. They're going to steal the petition and destroy it, right?
Okay.
Right? And so immediately this crowd like gathers around, grabs these guys, 50,000 strong in the square, and they start chanting like, "We should kill them. We should kill them. We should kill them."
Damn.
And the crowd does. They like literally tear these guys asunder. They beat them to death right there in the Champ de Mars. Right? Things start going crazy. The riot breaks out in the Champ de Mars. The mayor of Paris, who's worried that things are going to get really out of hand. This is 50,000 people who think that their revolution is under threat. Exactly, right?
Mob justice,
It's the type of people who are showing up to sign a petition to radicalize the revolution. These are not exactly like...
They're searching for a fight,
Yeah, they're hotheads, right? We'll understatement there, right?
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is the mayor of Paris calls in the National Guard. We talked about them in the last episode, this revolutionary sort of vanguard group that's loyal to the government, this like constitutional monarchy government though, right? They're led by the Marquis de Lafayette.
I know him.
Yeah, he's the guy who went down with George Washington at Valley Forge to help them out. Did you know, just really quick aside on the Marquis de Lafayette and the Valley Forge, that like Washington had him in and his French guys in because things were so bad that there were like 2 to 3 like shooting incidents where guys were just like getting drunk or dropping their rifles and shooting themselves or each other a day at Valley Forge.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Do you ever just cease to, you're like, how in the hell did we win the revolution?
I feel like the British just kind of quit on it.
Right? It had to. There's no way.
Yeah.
I mean, was it like just not worth it? Like,
yeah, I think, well, they had India.
That's true. That's Once they got India, they didn't care about it. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So anyway, back to the Marquis de Lafayette. Right. So he's leading this group of National Guards. Right. And these guys show up to the Champ de Mars. They're armed to the teeth. Right. And they descend upon the Champ de Mars.
Okay. Right? So everybody's like, okay, maybe we took it a little too far. We got our little vigilante justice. Let's go ahead and head on home.
Nope.
I mean, No, they didn't.
Nope.
Okay.
No. In fact, instead, they started, the crowd starts to throw stones at the troops, and they paraded around the dead bodies of those 2 perps that we were talking about. So the troops responded by opening fire on the crowd, cutting down an estimated 50 people in a punishing series of like full-on military-style volleys.
What?
Yeah.
I just don't even, I don't get I do get the French Revolution. I just don't understand how anything was accomplished at any point because it is literally seems like a comedy of errors every step of the way.
Yep. And it really is. I mean, this incident, which is known as the Champ de Mars massacre, really radicalizes the revolution, and right, and like after this point in time, like the monarchists, they've lost faith. The constitutional monarchists, they've lost faith. The people who are the moderates, right, like the Girondins, they have lost faith as far as the crowd is concerned. The only group that emerges from this who looks like they're on the side of the people are the Jacobins and the Cordeliers. They
Who
are
are the
people. Yeah, exactly. That's
great.
an understatement.
That's great.
Yeah, and they're the only legitimate group left.
You know how during the COVID pandemic, you kept first it was the Australian wildfires, and then it was the pandemic, and then it was wasn't there like a killer murderous bee thing or
the super hornets or
the super hornets
killer
and it
hornets
eventually
or whatever. Yeah,
got to the point where like nothing surprised you anymore. You're like, yep, that makes complete sense now.
I think it was like when something went well, you were like, wait, what?
What? I think that's like the moderates are like, I don't know what the hell has happened, but I'm out. I don't even care.
Could you imagine being at that meeting and being like, yo, dude, I think the revolution is in real threat. And people are like, why? And you're like, because this guy was trying to look up this lady's skirt and now the whole city of Paris is on fire.
Yeah. I mean, you're like, I'm done. I don't care. At this stage of the game, I'm leaving Paris. I'm out. I'm going to Britain. Yeah.
You have to.
Oh, seriously. So what we're seeing is by 1792, the writing is on the proverbial wall for the king, right? It's not looking good. Okay. You now have the radicals who are in charge of Paris. You have the flight to Varennes that was disastrous. Now you've had this massacre, right, where you've got your own military firing on its own people. And the radical factions are now pushing for even more radicalization and the actual overthrow of the king. There's no good ending for him here. There is no path that is going to end up saving him in terms of either his life or not in jail or something. He has no hope at this stage of the game.
None.
And so, there's none. So we also, though, on a good note, we do have a constitution of 1791 that's been created, and you're like, all right, that's awesome. It's a great constitution. People have rights, and the king is still, part of the French people. It's just, it's a disaster right now because it's chaos.
Yeah.
Right. And no matter, we have some good things, but every time we have a good thing, then we have a bad thing. And the bad things just keep getting worse and the radicals just keep getting more radical. And it's going to seal the fate of Louis.
Yeah. I mean, this is where we see that in 1792, the radicals really jump at their opportunity, right?
Oh,
because if we go back again to 1791, we know Louis left this note that he was going to destroy the revolution, but he gives this statement to the assembly in 1792 after the fact, right? The same year that constitution you just said was ratified, that reads thusly, right?
Oh, what did he say?
The motives of my departure were the insults and outrages I underwent on the 18th of April when I wished to go to St. Cloud. These insults remained unpunished, and I thereupon believed that there was neither safety nor decorum in my staying any longer in Paris. Unable to quit publicly, I resolved to depart in the night and without attendance. My intention was never to leave the kingdom. I had no concert with foreign powers, nor with the princes of my family who have emigrated. My residence would have been at Montambe, a palace I had chosen because it is fortified, and that being close to the frontier, I was more ready to oppose every kind of invasion. I have learnt during my journey that public opinion was decided in favor of the Constitution, and so soon as I learnt that the general wish, I have not hesitated, and have I ever hesitated to make this sacrifice of what concerns myself for public good.
Oh my God, he's such a liar. You're such a...
Yeah.
How many... The amount of evidence they could present against him about, that's not true. I was insulted, so therefore I had to leave. Okay, you little sissy.
And then when I heard that people wanted me to come back, I totally came back.
I totally came back because I only care about the good for my people, and I only care that I can do what's best. What a bunch of crap. And again, everyone knows it, and now everyone's really pissed at him because he's flat out huge lying here.
Big time.
The radicals, even though they hated him to begin with, now they never going to trust him. He's a super liar. They know it. Okay, they can't back him. The royalists thought he looked weak. You're like, dude, you're the absolute monarch. Don't sit there and kowtow to the audience.
Exactly.
So now the monarchists don't like him. The radicals don't like him. And the peasants, poor peasants, are like, we're just starving. Can we get some food? Can we just get some food?
They could care less. They could care less what he has to say. Right? They just want to eat.
Like, I don't even, the peasants are like, I don't care what government you put in place at this stage of the game, as long as I have a job and some food. Right. You pick. Just get it done.
And then there's the last groups of people, right? The nobles and the clergy, right? Yeah. And they've lost faith in the king now too. They think they're going to lose all their privilege and be sold out completely.
So everybody's unhappy in France.
Great statement, Louis.
Now, on a positive note, usually when everybody's angry of all the different social classes, revolution tends to succeed. But that's not going to be the case in France. Because why?
Nope. Well, in large part, what we start to see is this sort of like what Marx, I guess, would call class consciousness start to emerge, right? Right. So, there's this idea that like really comes out of the American Revolution and philosophers like Thomas Paine, who believed that since the government, which was, like always going to be bad, right? If it can't meet the needs of the people, then the people would thus be like authorized to overthrow, right? Yeah. And the group of people who like are starting to like really radicalize themselves and who are finding more and more sponsorship via the Jacobins and the Cordeliers are the sans culottes, right? And these are the people who are going to really start to turn things upside down.
Oh yeah, it's going to get nasty. Like,
yeah,
talk about. It's just a crazy revolution in general.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
So the radicals are now ready to go, right?
Yep. Sans-culottes. They're ready. They did point them at something.
Right.
That's all they need right now.
Okay. So what they're going to do is the Sans are going to attack the king's castle.
Yeah, the one he's being arrested
right,
in.
The one he's in Tulare. And why not? Because it's radical phase now, and they're going to kill several hundred Swiss guards.
Whoa. That's no joke.
No, like we're ramping it up.
Dude, okay.
You had the Champs de Mars massacre, and you're like, well, hey, if we can kill 50 people, let's ramp it up and kill even hundreds, right?
Yeah,
they're in it to win it for blood right now.
It's Chicago rules, right? Yeah, like you put one of mine in the hospital, I'm gonna put 5 of yours in the morgue or whatever that line is. Yeah, dude. I'm feeling okay. Good job. Good on you. Sounds cool. I mean, not like this podcast doesn't sponsor or condone murder, but I feel where they're at. They've got
some conviction and running with it. So obviously, King Louis and Marie are going to flee the castle because
that's a horrible move.
It's a terrible move, but you get it. Dude, they just killed hundreds of your guards. You know they're coming after you.
No. It's not good. It's like Electric Boogaloo, the movie, and then Electric Boogaloo 2 is the exact same movie. Like, this is the same thing. Like,
I know, it's so bad.
You know what'll get them on our side is we'll flee the castle again.
Yeah. They'll totally believe us after this. And so they try to, they hid in the Revolutionary Assembly because they thought that the government would protect them. That's not going to happen.
No, because the government's full of all the Jacobins and the radical Cordeliers. So, jeez, this is
I know,
so
it's just
dumb.
like, what are you...
So dumb.
At this stage of the game, I'm like, maybe there's like some kind of brain eating amoeba going on in Louis. Something where he literally could not think anymore. Not that he was great to begin with, but this is the best option.
Top advisor had to have been like a house plant or something. Like,
that's right. I'm telling you, the gray matter was gone. So obviously, a result of this is that he's not going to get protection. He's going to be placed under house arrest, and he is now, they officially strip him of all his political functions. Not that he had that much to begin with at this stage, but anyway, now it's technically the monarchy is gone.
Oh man, dude. So as the summer ended in turmoil in Paris, like everybody is angry and upset, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like did you see the last version of the Batman movie?
No.
Like the city is eating itself.
But you get it. Like I get it.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. You got the sans-culottes. They've broken into the prisons. They're freeing prisoners, many of whom were not political prisoners. They were like people who were in there for
everybody
murder. Yeah, so now the streets are being jam-packed with the worst type of person, like cutthroats and brigands and robbers and all that. There's basically chaos on the streets of Paris, right? To the point where like all law and order breaks down. The Revolutionary Guard, they've lost control of the city. Street fights break out. There's like gangs that are roving around. Like the city literally becomes like these like series of like fortified like districts and neighborhoods. And this is old Paris with its narrow streets and tall buildings. And so you have these really condensed spaces. Imagine the city smelling like filling with smoke and fire and no more public services. Like it's just a hellscape, right? Batman, the city is eating itself.
It's like a post-apocalyptic world. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
So eventually the government, what's left of it anyway, needs to try to seize control, tries to throw a little red meat out there to the sans-culottes and the radicals. And on September 21st and 22nd, they officially do abolish the monarchy, right? And they announce that the king and the queen will be put on trial for crimes against the newly minted republic.
Yeah. It's interesting how they feel like gang violence and street warfare is a republic, but you know what? To each their own definition.
It's like that. It's like if you went to Plato's cave and you unchained all the people who've been viewing the world on the shadow wall, and then saying like, well, they'd seen everything on the wall, so they probably know how to self-regulate.
Oh my God,
it's out of control.
It's just a nightmare.
Right.
So the trial does start, but it's actually pretty lengthy, which even when I first read about it, it surprised me. I'm like, how lengthy does it have to be? He literally was sicking another country on his own people. But after the trial, the king was sentenced to death on January 15th of 1793, and then they carried out the execution on January 21st.
Oh, wow.
That was the plan, right? You're like, you're found guilty. Now you got 6 days to think about that. We're going to execute you. And what can we say, Louis? Your time's limited.
He got a 3-month trial, though. That's not bad for a show trial.
No, that's not bad. Good for them. So the king is going to be sent to the guillotine, right? He's going to be in his carriage.
Oh, that one he absconded to Varennes in.
Yeah, he's like, oh, can I use it just one more time? Thanks. Maybe he'll stop and have some accoutrements on the side again really quickly.
Some pate, foie gras.
He did, now, in all fairness, he did retain his dignity, right? He was not going to sit there and do like this full-on beg, plead thing. He's going to kind of stick it to the executioners, right?
Okay.
He won't let people take off his coat. He's going to take off himself. He doesn't want to be tied up. He's like, no, I'm walking to the guillotine. I mean, so good for him. A little late to be shown the dignity, but
Hey, I mean, he had a long time to think about how he'd play this last act.
Yeah, like it's just terrible. So, tell us a little bit more about why they thought the guillotine was going to be humane, because this cracks me. It doesn't crack me up. It's actually really sick. But they thought the guillotine is a humane way to be executed.
Right. So, like, basically, like, the history of executions have been awful. Like, to behead someone was really, really hard. To go to the Ravenstone, which is where most, like, the name where people would be headed in, like, German principalities, for example, was like a really, like, no pun intended here, hit or miss proposition. You could literally get somebody, a headsman who shows up, and one good swing takes your head clean off.
And you're done.
Yeah, but that's not like, that's like a 1 in 100 sort of, usually it's a couple of hacks with a sword or an axe.
That's horrible.
And here's where you got to think about this. If you had an executioner who's been at the game for a long period of time, they probably have a lot of post-traumatic stress, and they're probably dealing with it in the 18th century by self-medicating with heavy amounts of alcohol.
Yeah.
Which means that your headsman's going to show up drunk, seeing double, and who knows what they hit. There's a crazy story of a headsman in Germany who, like, took the first swing, hit the person in the shoulder. They're sitting in a chair, by the way, just like a regular chair. The next swing hits the person in the top of the head and takes the top of the head off. The third swing comes in wonky, takes the ear and breaks the jaw. And the fifth swing just missed completely.
Oh my God.
At which point in time, the executioner kicked the person out of the chair and just hacked their head off, right?
Oh, that's
all while
horrible.
the deceased was just screaming and the
Oh my
crowd is
God.
jeering and yeah.
And people
So
still thought the guillotine was the humane way to go.
so well, yeah, because the
If
guillotine,
it's done
you,
right.
right, if you've ever seen it, it's got this giant scaffold. You have
Yeah.
this weighted blade. It is dropped. Gravity propels the blade down really, really quickly. The blade is extremely sharp. It's aligned to the vertebrae, right? So everything's, and it's going to just take the head off real clean, right?
Yeah.
Which was meant to be like less painful. It was
Right.
seen as part of this Enlightenment tradition that was
Yeah,
pushing
yeah.
the revolution forward. Like, hey, we can do things better. And so the guillotine was seen as like an improvement to that, or like getting burned alive or hanged by the neck. And which, by the way, like hangings at that time were not like you drop and your neck breaks. It was
Yeah.
like your throttle,
Suffocate,
which could
yeah.
take 20 minutes or more.
Oh.
So this
All right,
was seen as an improvement.
And this is what King Louis is basically walking up to, right?
Yes.
And so he was told he could refute, as he's walking up to the scaffold, he could refute the orders of the executioners. The executioners actually still called him sire. Like, it's just a weird, bizarre way to go.
Well,
but
this guy was picked by God, they all thought. Like
Yeah, I
literally
know.
2 years before this, they're like, God chose that guy to rule us. That's where we were at. And now
That
they're
is
like,
true.
let's chop his head off with a giant razor.
like a razor. And so as he's walking up, he eventually just loses all his fight. Like he's like, I got nothing left in me. I don't. And so one of the
Well, what
last
I had heard here, I got a little one for you. I've
Okay.
been saving this detail.
Okay.
What I had read in one of our sources that was linked
Yeah.
to that Reddit post
Yeah.
was that he not just lost his composure, he like fell to the ground crying and shat his pants. And
Well,
then they
I
had to lift him back up, which like, listen, he's
I
getting
get it.
publicly executed. Yeah. But like,
Yeah.
he went from 5 minutes ago, like he was going out like
Dignity.
a shot caller, exactly taking off his own coat. People are calling him sire, to now he's like literally being dragged, like poopy pants and all, to the National Razor to have his head taken off.
But come on, I can't judge him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Right.
I can't. But that's God, that's horrible.
Yeah.
That just makes it even worse.
But he does kind of redeem himself because he has some of the best last words of all time.
He does. And he basically says this: "Do what you wish. I will drain the cup to the dregs."
Oh, dude, that's so metal. Like,
Isn't
if
that good?
he just didn't have a pants full of poop, that would
It
have
would have
been
been
like
so good.
so metal. Instead, he's just like France's 1700s version of Gigi Allen, which
Yeah,
is
like,
not
it's just
so
bad.
cool. But still, what a great line! What a
He
great
was.
line to go out on.
And that's basically what he goes out on.
Yeah.
And so they're leading up to the scaffold. They're extremely steep, these steps, because that's just what they did. They basically, people had to help him get up with, he's holding on to people's arms to get up the scaffold. He eventually does regain himself a little bit because he was able to cross actually the scaffold with what they call a firm step.
Oh, that's good.
Which, good for you. I don't know how you would possibly have dignity after you've just crapped your pants, but whatever. There's like 10 to 15 drummers who are in front of him. They're, the dun, 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 dun,
Dude, yeah,
terrible.
dude.
And then, but with a strong voice, here's going to be some last words. You ready?
Okay.
I die innocent of all the crimes imputed to me. I pardon the authors of my death and pray God that the blood you are about to shed will never fall upon France.
Oh, that is oh man, way to go out like a shot. He pardons them.
Like he's like some benevolent, come on.
It's a little late in the game to start acting like a king,
Like he cares? Yeah.
but he did. I gotta hand it to him on that. Those last set of words, dude. The drain the cups to the dregs, and then like I pardon you, dude. The authors of my death, I pardon you. That's pretty baller.
That's a classy move. And it would have been
Yeah.
even classier had he not said right before that, I am innocent of all these crimes.
Yeah, that part wasn't cool.
I feel like it takes a little shine away from the...
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
So then, anyway, he says it. He's seized by 3 executioners. He's forced under the blade of the guillotine. His head fell at 15 minutes after 10.
Dude.
And then this is the worst part. I'm like, God, nobody's classy in this country at this stage of the game. The executioners basically seize Louis's head by the hair and they show it to the multitude of crowds who cry, "Long live the Republic." That's gross.
Just holding it out there. Yeah, man.
Come
That's
on.
a tough way to go out.
That's
Right.
not cool. But with that, at the age of 38, Louis the 16th, and his whole family, who had reigned for centuries for France previously, it's done.
Dude, they're dead. Now, Marie Antoinette was not with the king during any of this, right?
Right, that's
the
not cool.
resolution of her fate lingered on for almost an entire year after Louis's execution.
Crazy.
She had been held in prison in a tower for much of that time after Louis XVI's execution. Here, she was no longer called queen, but rather the widow Capet, which really is kind of like a cruel joke regarding the dynastic name of the royal lineage that had just been brutally ended. Yeah,
people are mean.
They are mean, dude. Like you said, they're not a classy group.
They're not a classy group, right?
No, definitely not. So she was basically held in this form of solitary confinement in this tower for the duration of this time. Now, if you know anything about 1793 and the French Revolution, you know that this period is called the Reign of Terror, right? Specifically,
we didn't think it could get worse, but it does.
Yeah. There's this group called the Committee on Public Safety, and the committee was basically trying to root out all of the so-called reactionary anti-revolutionary forces and was killing them. Like they're trying to all revolutions go through this sort of radical sort of phase. And this revolution started to really steep itself in 1793 in the work of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. We're not going to get too deep into Rousseau. We talk about him in our social contract episode. Yeah. But essentially Rousseau wanted to create a uniform society where everybody agreed with everybody else. Work for the general will is what Rousseau called it.
That was Robespierre's thing, is the only way that a republic was going to be capable in France is if everybody was on the same page and everybody agreed. And what he meant was agreed with the way I want to do it. And even if you agreed with the republic, but not the way Robespierre wanted it, you were still seen as an enemy of the republic.
Right. Now, Rousseau thought that the creation of the national sovereign or the body sovereign is what he called it, and the national will or the general will, which is what all the people wanted. Rousseau thought that would take maybe a generation, and then you'd have to have a whole group of people, maybe some sort of oligarchy or something, to execute what the general will wanted. Robespierre just wanted to circumvent all of this and just go from A to Z, which by the way is the same thing that Lenin tries to do with Marxist theory during the Russian Revolution too, right? Let's just skip all the big middle parts, or Mao does the same thing in China.
Oh,
right?
I know.
So these guys just want to skip all the boring details, right? Which makes Robespierre not that much different than Louis, right?
Yeah,
who was also an idiot and not a details guy. So anyway, in order to continue to give the sans-culottes and the crowds what they want, which is blood, right? A trial is called for Marie, and she is going to be paraded out, right? Now, this was not a humanitarian move. They wanted to kill her and give the bloodthirsty radicals more to consume. The revolution by this time was truly out of control, and people were being executed by the tens of thousands.
Oh, yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. A slew of charges were brought against Marie Antoinette, many of them overtly misogynistic and hypersexualized so as to paint her as a very horrible person. And listen, we're not going to platform any of that trash. We're not going to read those things out. They're all false, right? Her trial was not about ending her solitary confinement. It was about giving the crowd blood, right? Yeah. So listen, here's the thing. We know Marie was certainly not a sympathetic character through any of what we've talked about in the previous episodes, right? She was a particularly aloof ruler of a particularly cruel system. Even some of the revolutionaries at her trial, though, when the salacious indictments were read, reacted angrily towards the charges and sympathetically towards Marie.
Because
these are the hardcore radicals.
Yeah,
they went too far with this. She was eventually found guilty of 3 charges, all of which are likely true. So treason, overspending or giving money to Austria, and conspiring to overthrow the revolutions. And
that's
based
legit.
on that stupid note that Louis left, those things seem pretty likely, right? So we should note that her trial, though, was likely a show trial, and her fate had long been sealed prior to the first witness, the first indictment being read, right?
Oh,
Here's the thing. The lawyers for Marie Antoinette, because she did have lawyers, this thing was supposed to look like a real trial,
Yeah.
had figured that when the trial began, she would be found guilty. But at worst, they thought, like, even if the charges were these absurd charges that they were, she would receive, like, life in prison as the worst case scenario.
That surprises me they would think that, though, because she's not French by birth, right?
I think
Why
that's
would you
part
think-
of why they thought that, though.
Oh, gotcha.
Because like she's France is already at war with Austria.
Don't make Austria any more mad.
Yeah, we're talking regicide.
Yeah,
like,
that's bad. Yeah.
Yeah, you killed your king, but that was your king. She's a foreigner, right? And her father is the king of Austria.
Yeah.
Right. So when the guilty verdicts were quickly returned, though, and the shocking sentence of death was determined, Marie and everybody else realized that this had all just been a cruel game.
Yeah.
Right. Now, on the day of her execution, Marie Antoinette suffered many indignities. She was forced to change in front of her guards, right? She was forced to wear like a white dress, which is the official, like the widow or mourning color for French queens, right? Her head was shaved. She was bound. She was put on a rope leash and forced to sit in an open cart as she was transported to her death, right?
Good God.
Now, she also is rumored to have fallen to her knees and soiled herself. However, nobody helped her up. She was given no hand. Nobody helped steady herself. She had to pick herself back up off of the concrete and walk to this open cart, like just like a turnip cart sort of thing, right? And then she was taken for an hour through the city, making this trip, all while people threw rotten food and feces and rocks at her, right? She never said a word. Well, she was reported to have never said a word, and she never shed a tear, right?
Okay,
now,
I'm kind of proud of her for that. Like, that's right.
Yes. Now, the next part we have on pretty good sources as well, because the revolutionary artist David created a sketch and left this. And David, he does like the death of Marat and Napoleon crossing the Alps, like the epic painter of the ending stages of the French Revolution, right? So he relates that upon reaching the execution scaffold that you described above, she is said to have stood in a dignified manner and walked without assistance to her death, right? David made a quick sketch of her during her last moments. He depicted her sitting, hands behind her back, sitting up straight, chin high, and a defiant look across her face. Her last words were to an executioner. This was an apology for accidentally stepping on his shoe. We know this was an accident, as Marie said, quote, "I did not do it on purpose." She then laid herself down under the blade. The crowd cheered her death. Once the national razor fell, her head was also pulled out of the basket.
Oh, God.
Hers was raised on a pole and paraded out into the crowd. Later, when they got back to the scaffold, the executioner slapped her face, right?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Now, this
That's
part's
disgusting.
pretty crazy, right? It is said that her face then blushed a furious red and a scowl drew across her lips. The crowd was terrified by the fact that this... Now, here's the thing. We talked about the guillotine.
Right.
When the blade severs the head, it's not an instant quick death. There can still be blood and neurological reactions. And so it's possible that the slapping of the face, she may have still had brain activity and reacted to it. Yeah, I know, right? Which is totally crazy, right? The crowd screams, the executioner throws her head into the basket, right? And then, as if there hadn't been enough indignity for Marie Antoinette, right? Her body was then... her face was delivered to Madame Tussaud, right? The lady who made the death masks out of wax, right? And her body was dumped into a mass grave in the city. She wasn't given a royal burial. She wasn't given any of what her husband Louis the 16th received, right? He went to like the royal crypt and got the full thing. Her head was just taken and lost after Tussaud. We don't know what happens to it. And her body was just dumped with many of the other people who were executed on that day in Paris, right? Thus concludes the fallout from our fateful flight to Varennes.
I didn't think I could ever feel sorry for King Louis and Marie Antoinette, and now I feel sorry for them.
I know,
like,
right?
I'm especially Marie Antoinette. That is horrific behavior. And I'm not saying, like, I get it. Like, her being executed, she did commit treason against the country. I get that.
Oh, yeah.
But my God, what is wrong with people?
I know, right? It's totally insane. You can totally understand why this revolution captures so many people's like attentions. And this story that we told is just one of like 100 stories, 1,000 stories inside of this revolution that are harrowing and full of like, you know, a Hollywood scriptwriter, like a screenwriter, couldn't come up with some of this sort of stuff. Like
How bad it was. No,
this is just, it's truly amazing.
Whatever. You know what?
That's it.
Well, this is what happens. It wasn't a successful revolution anyway, because you end up with a dictator, and then you're going to go through it again in about 50 years. So good for you.
Hey, with more horrors to come, right?
I know.
Hey, that's what keeps us in this podcasting game.
I know, it's true. Thank God we have horrific but interesting stories.
That's right.
Well, that is going to do it for us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on our final part of the fateful flight to Varennes. As always, if you enjoyed us, go ahead and give us a like. Breen, hit us up with where they can find us.
You can find us on Apple, Spotify is where most of our listeners find us. We're also on Anchor, which is now Spotify podcast. It's gone through a rebrand, so you can check us out there as well, or pretty much anywhere that you get a podcast. We'd love a sub. Hit us with a 5-star review, leave a comment, make it easier for people to find. You know, if you write something, just get us, you know, for the algorithm or something like that, and that'd be awesome. But yeah, we appreciate all the love and support. We've seen a huge uptick in streams and downloads here over the last couple of months, and we just really appreciate all of our students and listeners out there for supporting the pod.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, see you later.
Bye.